I'm Stacie Sussman, and you're listening to C-Suite Strategies. In today's episode, we'll explore a critical question. How can entrepreneurs, C-suites, and founders truly build scalable business models? Are you tired of doing things manually, or as we like to call it, the hard way? Are you in the messy middle of scaling your business, but need some people to send you a life raft? We've got you covered. In this episode, we're going to show you how you can move from overwhelmed and stuck to scalable. Instead, we're going to transform your business into a well-oiled machine with repeatable and automated process. It's not just a dream. It's a key to unlocking your business's true potential. Today, we are joined by Adam Judeh, the founder of OpsFX. Adam is the master integrator, operations expert who's taken lessons from moving burritos and cheese at Chipotle to creating blueprints for founders in a scalable and systematic way. With a rich background as an operations director, Adam is here to reveal how we too can build scalable systems. Adam shares his insights on when it's time to bring in an operations integrator like him, how to identify the right tools for your needs. There's probably too many in your tech stack, and there's probably something that can solve your manual steps. But understanding the why behind all the business steps that you do, that's what moves you from a good company to a great one. In this eye-opening conversation, we'll dive deep into the world of scalable system design. You'll discover why dumping everything into a whiteboard could be the first step to your business breakthrough, and why being vulnerable enough to accept help might just accelerate your growth beyond your wildest dreams. We did it here with Adam at RevUp Advisory. Tune in now as we explore how to build a scalable business model with Adam Judeh exclusively on C-Suite Strategies. It all starts now. Welcome to C-Suite Strategies, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of top executives across diverse industries. I'm your host, Stacie Sussman, Chief Revenue Officer at RevUp Advisory, and I'm here to uncover the strategies, insights, and hidden wisdom that drive success at the highest levels of business. Each episode will dive into a specific topic crucial to scaling a business, exploring the unique challenges and opportunities that shape growth and success. From innovative revenue models to marketing to cutting-edge leadership techniques, we leave no stone unturned. Whether you're a seasoned C-suite executive or a hungry founder seeking more knowledge, this podcast is your backstage pass to the strategies that separate good companies from great ones. Prepare to challenge your assumptions, expand your horizons, and walk away from each episode with actionable insights that can transform your approach to business. Follow now, C-Suite Strategies, and join us as we uncover the secrets to sustainable business growth, one powerful conversation at a time. Your next big breakthrough might just be a listen away. We are so excited to be here with you. Super excited to have one of my operator and friend and all-around awesome dude. Adam has helped build us a low-code, no-code solution with Coda specifically. And so let's just take a step back before we talk about scaling systems for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and small agencies. And let's just throw up your corporate experience, because I think this gives people a really good sense of why you're exceptionally qualified to do this and why you actually love doing what you did. So just talk to me a little bit about your corporate role before you start your own thing.
Yeah. Chipotle was my first true love. And I always say that to people because I love the brand still to this day. I think the first thing people asked me when I stepped out was like, oh, you got to be mad, like all this stuff. Like, no, I am so thankful to like have not only like the leaders that shaped me, but it was also the systems and the processes. Like, it's an operations focused business. And I mean, anyone in the US knows what Chipotle is, or at least I hope you do. And it really built like a solid foundation of you do the same things every day over and over again, and you get really, really good at it. And so what helped when I came into this world today was, if we can't do the same thing every day with a process, there's a problem. And like, people will be like, well, you're too process focused, or any of that. And not that I get that feedback. I see a lot of that content out there where it's like, but no, when you actually peel back the layers, like, there are processes, and those things have to be simplified. They have to be repeatable. It's not just some like hoopla that you can post up on your feed. It's like, you actually have to get in there and do it. It's going to be hard to do it. I think, Stacie, you and I have had conversations like this too, where it's like, it's over engineered. I think that's a really good comment. And that was great feedback even for me, because it's like, well, that is how difficult your process is when you really look at all the moving parts. But how do we display that not only to the customers, but to the end users, which is the team, which is yourself, which is anybody who I work with, for it to be easy and consumable? And I think that corporate experience of like really having to battle and fight in that environment. I was a fixer for many years. I worked with over 150 restaurants at one point, and it was really fun to be able to take that knowledge, and although it's burritos and tacos, be able to shift it. And no, I'm not doing that in all 100, plus restaurants all the time. But, it's really enlightening to be able to take some of those same principles, concepts, all that stuff, and apply it to this business model. And I think that at the heart of it, that's operations. It's taking that and making it your own.
Yeah. And I will say, I think as a solopreneur who's moved toward more of an agency model, and Adam's helped us build this out in Coda specifically, and there's tons of other tools out there also, the resistance to, I don't have my SOPs, and then that's standard operating procedures for those that don't speak in acronyms like us. It's scalability. And what I do and what Adam does is help companies scale at the end of the day. And every business has repeatable processes. So even if you think you don't have standard operating procedures, because it's just a fancy term for repeatable processes, you do. And the more that you're able to document it, and just because we're nerds and love technology, and I'll say it, we can automate those processes and streamline it across multiple team members internally or externally. That's when you really have a business and you're able to scale, because the days of me trying to do it all by myself are thankfully behind me. And I have awesome people like Adam and a bench of all-stars, wizards, and ninjas at RevUp Advisory. And the streamlining and the communication just becomes so much easier when you have these tools and systems to be able to do that. And so it is operations at the end of the day, but the goal is to be able to scale the business, and they have to come hand in hand. And the more I think you fight it, or the more friction you have with it, the more you're going to not be able to scale, or I think you just halt and you kind of plateau. And in order to get to that next inflection point, you need this kind of stuff.
And to add to that, a lot of my content is like, don't go to automation first. And automation first is a great mentality to have. I think it's, people that might not understand the inner workings of it, or like what you're actually paying for, because like your operations costs and Zapier can add up pretty quick. If you're not paying attention to those things, you're just like, well, I just want it to be automated. Okay, cool. Right. So what am I automating? Where is it? And then my other enemy of the world is either Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. Granted, I still use it all the time, right? Like, I jot quick ideas down, whatever it might be, but that is like the beginning point. Even just as I'm having conversations with people, I'm like, well, where does the process live? One, if it's stuck in your head, like, you got some work to do. Buy a whiteboard, like, just dump the brain for a minute, and then let's try to make some sense of it. And you'll easily be able to pick out like how mature something is, or how critical is this for my business, right? Even for me, like newsletter automation right now, I have processes built for that and ready to go. But am I necessarily putting my foot on the gas? No, it's just not important to me right now. And that's just like one small example. But even just for you, like with RevUp, it was, you wanted to scale and move. We needed to get the entire team into the business somehow. It's kind of and maybe you felt this, it's like a control thing, because it's like, oh, wait, all of a sudden everybody's going to see my hand. And that is scary. And so it's a lot more than just like, optimization or operations or automation or all these power words people use. It really comes down to like, are you vulnerable enough to let people into your business and
Right.
help you speed up? We can talk revenue acceleration all day. I know that with you, but can we also talk business and operations acceleration? Because that is the starting point of really where all that will come from. It's the end result.
Yeah. And it's so important. And I'll just say, I love Excel and Google Sheets, but we do a lot of work in HubSpot and Salesforce. So we're always trying to claw people out of that and into an automated machine where the reports can be generated in real time. But I think what Adam helped me do is I had a pretty great filing system in my Google Sheets with Rev Advisory, the name of the client, tons of subfolders, and Adam's seen it all. But it still felt like it was getting like lost in the sauce. And so I've worked with Adam to create what I would call like a client control panel that essentially like a blueprint at the end of the day that we can replicate client over client. That's like ticketing system, hour tracking, project management tool, deliverables, everything all in one, because those would eventually live in multiple Google subfolder, which sounds ridiculous. But I mean, even for these projects we're doing, even just building like a knowledge base, Adam, and we haven't talked about this for clients, by being able to go into Coda and saying we delivered ICP workshop, we delivered customer journey mapping, we're doing cleanup here, and just surfacing that into a knowledge base. When we leave you at the end of the day, here's all the things we did. That was so easy, and I could keep that up so easily because it's easily accessible. So it's communication and streamlining too.
Yeah, and lets you sleep at night and stop thinking about all the 6 things going on when you're at your kid's birthday party singing Taylor Swift. So
I'll just throw in a question here. So you help entrepreneurs, I would say solopreneurs or folks like me that are building, I would call us like scale up agencies. You could have taken your business in like a million different directions based on your corporate experience, but like why specifically helping these people create their operating systems? Why did you go there?
I'll go back to just some of the things from like my Chipotle, but also going into a startup experience is I had leaders who kicked my butt. They beat me up in a good way. I was always the youngest person in the room that was, moving up and forward and sitting with people. Like anyone would be like, what's going on? But they purposely did it. And they'd tell me like 2 years later, and I'd be like, what the heck are you doing? Where it was helping me see the things that I couldn't see because they had lived it. They had experienced it, whether it was with different brands, and we wanted to like think about how it connects to what we're currently doing today. And so my main mentor, who I call Mom, she's polar opposite of me. And she inspired me really to do what I'm doing today, where it's helping get in there with somebody. And I prefer the word integrator a lot more today than operations specifically.
I love that. I haven't heard that from you yet.
I know, right? I told you there's stuff that's going on. But you are integrating everything that goes on. And I think as I came into the online scene, but also, and I also have a business that I work with locally here too. So I am, helping in that capacity. But when I came into this, like, I'm going to start my own business environment, I saw that there's all these different positions that said that they're operations. And to me, it bothered me.
Oh my God. You look at the JDs on operations and you're like, that's sales, that's marketing, that's finance, that's a CEO. And like, I feel like operations becomes this like soup kitchen of just like.
The CEO says it is. That is okay, because I read something, there's like 7 different types of COOs, for the CEO. And it makes people look at the position like, oh, I get to call myself that. Like, cool, I want you to, but do you understand the methodology of like what you're going into? There's many different ways to look at it. But then I found a lot of similarities to project management and that entire world. And that's pretty much where I'm at today and what I'm working and learning. But what got me into actually saying, I want to continue to help entrepreneurs, people that are just starting their agencies, whatever it might be, was that they don't have the time for this. And I love being a number 2. I fought it for a really long time, but in any business, whether you're a solopreneur or freelancer or whatever the heck you want to call yourself today, having a number two, whether that's an accountability partner, whether that's somebody that can kick your butt on like getting things to market or whatever you're doing, because you can't be skilled at everything. You cannot wear all the hats. The question I always ask is like, at what cost? And so my beginning thing, even as I just network on LinkedIn, is try to know what's important to someone, because if it's costing them that, then we have to look at this differently. And that's also challenged me to look at pricing and things like that differently, because not everybody can afford a $5,000 to $7,000 a month contract. Not everybody can, but there is a way, if you just ask, or if you go to someone, I think even when we had this conversation, it was like, hey, is there a way where we could start working together differently? And we made it work. I think there needs to be more of those people, and not in a way of like use and abuse each other. It's just in a way of like, let me give you a snippet or a taste of my expertise. Let me help you a little bit. Let me just network with you. You never know what it will lead to. In my case, it's led to multiple contracts afterwards with other people. And I think that's what really got me addicted to this environment, is that there's so many moving pieces. Operations is defined as so many moving things. And I'm just really addicted to solving the problems and being that number two.
And now, a word from our sponsor, RevUp Advisory. At RevUp Advisory, we're passionate about transforming businesses. Most B2B companies struggle with scaling, but with us, you're guaranteed to maximize your marketing and sales growth, because it's literally all we do every day. We know you've already accomplished some amazing things, but we also know what got you here won't get you to where you want to go. When the messy middle of scaling feels overwhelming, we dive in, we clean it up, and we create true business transformation. Our job is to handle the nitty-gritty details that get you there, allowing you to focus on the bigger picture. Led by Stacie Sussman, with over 25 years of expertise in sales, marketing, and operations, our team of business strategists and technical wizards are ready to carve the right growth path forward for your company. Ready to rev up your business? Contact Stacie Sussman at RevUp Advisory today. So that brings me to my next question. And I agree. And everyone needs a number two. I think whether like an EA, a VA, an operator, an accountability partner, that probably looks different for every business. And I would say these milestones of your business, like I'm in growth velocity now. I'm not at the end and exiting, and I'm not at the beginning where I really am thirst for knowledge. And so finding someone like you at this point was like just the right thing that I needed to go on this like acceleration. And I think one, maybe people don't even know someone like you exists. And two, I like to say, have your hair on fire at the end of the day. And you're just like, I'm going to lead to burnout because my hair is on fire. There has to be a better way to do business. And I think a lot of the philosophies of what you do and what I do are actually similar. We just look at it from like a different SOW kind of thing. So how do you know when it's right? I feel like that LinkedIn post like spoke to me and like was in my feed for a reason. And I knew it was right just based on what Lachey had said. But like, when is the right time to invest in these systems? Because some people may be scrappy and say, oh, I just want to do it all myself. And some people may be burnt out and overwhelmed and say, if I don't figure this out, like I'm done, I'm closing shop. So like, when's the right time to go there?
There's never going to be a right time. But something that I would always do in my past was when I met or took over like a new restaurant or new locations or something like that, we would walk through simple fundamentals first together before we even started like gutting the place or doing any of those things. Because again, Fixer have some gnarly stories. But even if the place was a hot fire mess, we would step out and go get coffee and we'd really start breaking down what their day-to-day looked like. Just open conversation on what do you do at this time? What do you do at this time? And it might be annoying, but when you really step back and channel that reflective state for a hot minute, you start to understand, oh my God, I'm drowning here. And it's very easy just to look at a carousel and be like, oh yeah, I got to go do my schedule. No, work with people that have done it themselves, one, but also two, love doing it, because you're going to have somebody that's really picking your brain. I just did this with a recent client and we we figured out like there were a lot of moving pieces where it was just like, okay, we need to look at this differently now. So I think it's when you hit that point of, okay, I'm growing and I'm a little worried in your gut about like what this looks like. Doesn't matter how much money you're bringing in. Does
Right.
not. And I think that's the hardest piece, is separating that. But when you're able to look at it holistically and be like, how is this actually affecting my life or my loved one, whatever it might be, that's the right time. And it can be for anyone or any position. I would say the same thing to an internal team member. If you're a leader or doing something like that, if you've hit a point of like, oh God, like I'm working 15 hours a day, you need to speak up. And that's like the accountability version of me yelling right now, where it's like, speak up now, because you might need help, or you might need a different way to look at it, or you might need to bring in someone like myself or you to do the things that can help speed things up, right? Whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, it's all about the people that are operating the business. And if that sucks, everything sucks. Your customers are left to pick up the pieces. That's how I put it.
Yeah. And I think it brings me back to, I'll never forget this speech that Kevin Dorsey did at a pavilion summit I went to in New York, where he was like, what's your why? Adam's why and my why may be like different of why we're doing this business and why we're in this world that we're in. And so I feel like it's like when you figure out what makes someone tick and why they're doing it at the end of the day, you can help solve problems in a certain way for them, because it all leads back to like, why are they doing this? What's the vision? And it all comes back to that. And I think we look at that from the same angle and then apply different professional services.
100% agree. I think I keep going back to Chipotle on this, but like your restaurant wanted to be the restaurant that when you're going out to eat, you were going to your restaurant because of how you were treated or what was going on there or the people, whatever it might be. They know me by name. They put a little extra cheese on whatever the, crazy things people come up with are. My dad has his things. So I hear it all the time. But it's the same way that we look at our businesses today. Is it's like, are people choosing us because they want to choose our business, or are they choosing us because they have to? The sooner you can shift to because they want to, that's when things get really fun. And in the beginning, I was chasing so much that I kind of lost sight of that for a minute, where you'll know when you start getting impacted by what's going on in your business and what's happening behind the scenes, because your customers will ask, are you okay? Or you look tired, or, there's always signals. Like people talk about selling signals. I talk about fatigue signals and burnout signals, because that means something's wrong. And it's affecting all those other things that we're so worried about.
And I would say the pivotal moment for me was like willing to relinquish control, still having control, but being at the top and letting other people, I'll say, like swim in their lanes. And so hiring a business coach, hiring Adam as an operator, working with like a therapist, they all sort of like intertwine at the end of the day, and being able to like say, okay, we're going to have helpers and that are in their own disciplines, that are experts in the area that I've vibed with and I've sought out, and I think they're a good fit for our agency, come in and help us. I feel like that's where the growth happens. And people, I would say, overlook that because it may sound fluffy, or always say like the words like not sexy, but that's like the true inflection points, tools, services, and people that I think change the velocity of the growth.
Yeah, to anyone that loves success themselves and feeling it for themselves, they have not made somebody else more successful than them yet. And I think those are the life-changing moments that like keep you doing what you do. One of my leaders for a long time, she was living in the ghetto, and first time I met her, her son was walking home from school and there were gunshots going off in the neighborhood. I went on a personal mission to make sure that girl, her life changed, only because out of the goodness of like, hey, she's a good person. But then the feeling like, oh my God, I cried a lot. I still cry a lot. When you see those people succeed, because it's like, I did that. And it was the decisions I made that did that. And I know that might sound like very high up in the air, but if you look inside for a minute and be like, how could I channel more of that in my business? Those are the things that like help you get up at the alarm. Those are the things that help you think positively about the direction your business is going. Or like when you're sitting down having your strategy conversations, you come up with cooler ideas because you're more internally motivated to do that. And so I'm in this anti-solopreneur stage of my life because you don't and you cannot do it yourself. And I think we've lost a lot of that in the recent few years. While everybody was, working from home, I was out in the field for 17 hours some days and it sucked. And so I think there's going to be a big shift as we get back to that more with no, there's an interconnectedness between what we do. It will look different, but we should be the champions of seeing other people succeed.
Yeah. And I always say when our clients and customers win, we win. And so the idea of helping them streamline their sales and their marketing efforts to essentially grow the revenue at the end of the day is when I feel so much pride and admiration for being the team of wizards and ninjas that help. And I feel like you share those sentiments, and that's why we get along so well. But let's talk practicality. I've talked about Coda, Code.io. You've helped me build my backend operating system on them. I've used Basecamp, Jira, Notion, Google Sheets, ClickUp, Asana. I've literally used everything. And so when I came to Adam, I was like, I don't want 10 tools. I want project management. I want time tracking. I want ticketing in one place. And I love Coda because I had adopted it for my business anyway. And Adam's a Coda expert. And so that was our path and what we chose together. Give me some practical so other listeners can understand of what you're actually building for people. It's repeatable processes and it's operations, but what does that actually mean?
First, I'm tool agnostic and I love Coda. For a long time, spent a lot of time working there, but I think it's for what use case you're trying to attack. And that's something that comes with your strategy and your planning as you're moving forward. I think there's a lot of conversation around don't switch tools. It's well, no, switch tools if it makes sense for your business. You got me on Read AI. I'm I want an AI coach that's evaluating how many times I drop an F-bomb on a call. I'm better now. Thank you, Read. But whatever it might be, you have to be open to it and open to the change. So it starts there. But what I do in the background is I try to understand the current state of everything that's going on in the business. If that is Google Drive, that is Google Drive. I love it. It's a puzzle. Let's figure out kind of what moves where, what happens when. In a team environment, you have to know what everybody's experience is not just the founders and what their perspective is. It's how is the team interacting with these things? Because you're going to find people that, one, will buy in, and two, that are probably going to give you some gas, and that's okay. But when we start to map that out, we really start to look at where do we get to speed up? In a lot of cases today, for me, I'm more so focused on the back end engineering side. And so that's Airtable, and that's going into tools like Zeno and things like that are going to connect differently. But if it's for an agency that's moving at the pace that they're moving right now, that they don't need to take on a whole back-end development tool, then it's a tool like Coda or Notion, whatever it might be. And so really just evaluating what is the current state, but you have to build a foundation that you can easily move it after that. That's the most important thing, because if you're envisioning that you're going to have, a $10 million a year business, whatever it might be, or build my product, have a certain amount of users, and you're building something that's just living in Loom, no, it won't work. It might work today. That's where I get into the most scuffles, as I'm going back and forth when I'm trying to get information, is what can we do for our foundation that's going to put us strategically positioned 5 years from now from an internal operating standpoint. So Airtable is kind of where I'm living today. I love using different SOP tools. Loom just dropped their amazing AI tool. I looked at that and I'm thank you. Immediately I'm tagging, that was awesome. I actually just got my partner on using it for school stuff, and because he's calling people for classes, and I'm well, no, try this out. Here, I'll add you on my account. And it's more fun that way. I think looking at that current state, though, you have to look at the whole stack, audit, where your money is going, what it looks like. The scariest thing to me is, and my example is always Stripe. And I kind of take this because Anthony Pieri, someone who I look up to, would always talk about it with product marketing. But I look at it from an operations standpoint and I'm like, wait, Stripe has all of these resources within it. I can pull webhooks automatically. I can create the automations natively in Stripe without even spending a nickel in Zapier or whatever it might be. And I think that's for anybody looking at their tool stack today, like really start to understand the tool to the full use and what can you do with it. Ask questions, reach out to their support team. I use Breakhold for my CRM tool. I'm not huge in need HubSpot today, but like Arnaud and I, we go back and forth and I'm like asking him questions on, hey, could I do this? Oh no. Okay. Maybe I could actually like show you how I do it. And it's a win-win, but looking that way, I think the future plans is seeing kind of where this whole back-end development thing goes and acquiring different people that are really good at different things and sticking to operations and making it fun.
Yeah. And I would say Adam threw down so many bombs of like awesome companies that I would say we know and love because we're in these chat rooms. We talk to each other and we talk to a lot of other tech friends. Even if you've never heard of some of these companies, it's basically like, I need an AI tool that records video. Okay, well now Loom offers it. Or I need a project management tool that kind of looks like them, but has maybe statuses and due dates. That's something like a Notion. So I feel like you don't need to know what the names of the tools are for people that are, I think, solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. Sometimes we live in such a tech SaaS world that we're like, oh, check out this new tool. You don't know about it? Okay. But some people may not even be able to give names to the companies behind the tools, but they may be able to just describe what they want to have done. And so then you hire people like Adam and I to be like, it's our job to take your, what we'll say, like technical requirements and come up with a plan and an integration and a tool that can do that. And whether it's one tool or 5 tools, it's a different story. But it's just to be able to describe that, then you can scale an operating system.
Yep. I'm renovating a house right now and I look at like our home tools the same way, where like I didn't need a certain saw until I got to this one point of building a railing and I needed something. And so there's always going to be a time and a place. It's just being able to monitoring it, putting a system in place to monitor it, whether that's monthly, quarterly, and this could be RevOps propaganda, but like there should be somebody, whether it's you or somebody on your team or somebody that you hire in that's really assessing it, not just looking at the stack, but also, are we using it? How is our team using it? Are we doing all the things inside of it? Is there, a revenue win, even if it's incremental with like keeping this over that? Or maybe, an example is expense tools. Like you can easily build out an expense tool or work with somebody that can, cough, cough, because there's a lot of companies that are just trying to get you into their banking system.
So hard to unwind, as we know.
Yep. Especially when you start, I know the contract life of having very outdated software that you're just stuck with as everybody is moving swiftly. Yearly contracts always, but like it was like 5 years of like software. And I'm like, what are we doing? Who signed this?
Yeah, because the person that signed it, to be frank, is probably not the person that understands how the operating systems are all intertwined like piping. And so they signed it because it was, I'll say, a solution or a quick solution that then it gets it off their plate. But what we look at is like the upstream and downstream effects of how this affects the operating system of the whole business, which is honestly a new wave and a different way of thinking. But I think this is where companies are going at the end of the day. But there's still education and awareness as to what does this even mean for me?
I'll add one more variable into that. With the people on your team, how does it affect them? And I think that shift is happening right now because companies are bleeding dry in a lot of different worlds. I'm not just speaking at one industry. I come from a service industry and it was very difficult, but turnover is a real problem. If you just took a minute to understand how they feel, not just ask them, but like really understand, you'll find your answers to what tools or what could be solved differently. Going back to POS software, I'm pretty sure somebody didn't have a conversation with like 10 cashiers. I wish they would have. So like those same principles apply to any business where it's just like, it's a people-centric upstream, downstream. auditing, behavior that like you just have to believe in as a leader.
Yeah. We're going through an exercise with a client where we're doing an audit on HubSpot and Salesforce. And so it's kind of marrying the two systems that need to be integrated better. I'll say we need to optimize the integration, but there's about 500 to 700 fields on both sides, and we can probably cut that by more than half. And so we're giving homework to the client now and saying, hey, do you need 300 fields on your company in HubSpot? Because my guess is you don't use 300 fields. And so how can we eliminate that and simplify the UI UX at the end of the day to make the marketer's job more easily or make the salesperson's job more easy is huge. And so although it ends up being a big undertaking and it's a lot of hands on deck, the effects of where it goes and how it can streamline is so important. And so we see that every day, but I think it's something people need to understand too.
And the no code movement or low code or whatever, I can have ChatGPT help me with code if I need to. That movement is going to change a lot of things for, say, even a situation like that. And somebody taught me this, and recently too, when we were kind of connecting it to the front end, but it was, are all of your fields just readily available 24/7, or are you creating a view for every department? So it's like, even in Airtable today, I was just having this conversation with a client very well, where I'm like, no. I will create a view that has the editable fields for us, because then one, it won't break, but two, like then it's easy to understand. I think we get lost in Excel. Excel is like one of those things where I remember inventory management tools that would come in and I would break it. I would just, mess up a formula somewhere and I'm like, crap. And then it's ruined forever.
Yeah.
And you can create those environments in a no code space.
We were just having that same conversation on Salesforce. Like the executives has a really 10,000 foot in there, high level snapshot, but the sellers who are going to get in the weeds on the opportunities and moving pipeline really need like a more full view. And so we're having that conversation yesterday. But this is awesome. We could nerd out on this forever. I want to say, where can people find you? How can people get in touch with you? And if there's any other thing you want to plug, now's your moment, Adam.
Definitely. I am on LinkedIn, very active. You can find me at linkedin.com/Adam Judeh. My name's in there. I also have a couple links in there that you can hit if you guys want to stay tuned. I have a new newsletter revamping as I shifted tools, but I really like what Beehive's doing. And you can schedule a call with me just to touch base, whether it's to work together or if you have something that you're looking to solve. I'm open to, those types of conversations, but I definitely love hearing the problems. And if you guys have some of them or things, I'm sure 10 other people have it. And so we can have a conversation about how we can help each other.
Awesome. So follow him on LinkedIn. There are so many tools and tricks that can solve the pain of scaling your business, whether it's for yourself or for a larger team. And there's people that can help you do this. And so you're not alone. So I just wanted to bring this conversation to the forefront. And I thank you, Adam, for joining. And we are getting on each other's calendars to have a catch up very soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everyone.
As we wrap up this episode of C-Suite Strategies, I want to express my sincere gratitude to you, our listeners, for tuning in and engaging with our podcast. Your commitment to business growth and operational excellence is what drives this podcast forward. A special thank you to our guests today for sharing their valuable business insights and experience. Your wisdom is a gift to our audience, and we're honored to have had you on our show today. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd be thrilled if you follow and subscribe to the podcast. Your help supports us to reach more ambitious business leaders just like you. And if you didn't enjoy it, well, I guess I'll see you never. This is your host, Stacie Sussman, Chief Revenue Officer at RevUp Advisory, signing off.